Hello. I'm making a video. I have a couple of things that I need to talk about. First of all, I want to say that Governor Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump, and Elon Musk are amazing, stellar people. Unfortunately, the mafia doesn't think so, because the mafia does not want do-gooders standing in their way. Okay, so that's why they slander them, and then the majority, it seems like majority of people buy into the slander and the propaganda and the brainwashing and indoctrination and peer pressure and all of that. Okay, they buy into it, and it's very sad. And that's the subject I want to talk about in this video. Before we came back to this house, at the other house where we have internet, I was, that's like 2 weeks or so ago, I watched a crime report. I think it was a 48-hour crime report. And it was about a Chinese girl who was living on a student visa in the United States. I forgot now where it was. I think it was California. I think it was San Francisco, and she was studying, and she was an exceptional student, absolute straight A's all the way through every single class, every single exam, any type of exam, in math, in engineering, in physics. Absolutely exceptional. And she could have had a really good life and met good people, but she fell in love with the wrong guy. And he was also at the university, and Middle Eastern man. And that was the biggest mistake. It is a tragedy. It is a horror, as most of those relationships, that seem to end really bad with murder and stuff like this. All of these psychopathic people, that most of them are men. So the stories are almost all pretty much the same pattern, with just minor differences in just the appearance and ethnicity and so on. So she moved in with him and got pregnant. Big mistake. Then had his baby, a baby girl, and he became more and more abusive towards her. And she started to date a Chinese man on the internet and was almost ready to go back to China and be with that other guy. But her Middle Eastern boyfriend spied on her, on everything she did, and he confronted her viciously. She recorded these confrontations, and even he recorded these confrontations, hoping that he could, somehow incriminate her or whatever. But there's no chance for that, because that girl was a peaceful and very orderly person who would never cross the line with anything. But that Middle Eastern guy, he crossed the line all the time, he threatened her. He threatened to destroy her in real vicious ways. They had voice recordings. And that poor baby girl there in the middle of this. What a horror. And so then he started to become physically violent, and she still stayed there. She still stayed there. It's unbelievable. And then one time her parents, after the baby girl was born, her parents came there to help her with the baby. That's a custom in whole Asia. I saw on the internet that I think a lot of Asian countries have this like a parental help phase with the daughter having a child, and the parents, both parents, help her, and I think it's very touching and wonderful. But the boyfriend, he was not happy with that they came there to stay with them for a month, for this first month of the baby girl's life, and he wanted them to leave, and then he became abusive to the mother. He did all kinds of horrible things to the mother. He made her kneel down in front of him and stuff like that, and he was shouting at her, real mean, and yet these people, I guess they must be authority obedient, that they actually put up with something like this. I would never put up with any of that kind of stuff. I would never even get involved with a man like this, because I test people, and they will reveal their true face eventually. They will. So, and it's not very difficult to test someone like that guy, that husband of the Chinese girl. It's not very difficult to test him, but she didn't know how to test him, and the parents didn't know, and they were afraid of him. They wanted to do everything he said. And when I see something like this, a lot of anger comes up in me when I see people catering to a psychopath. Makes me incredibly angry. So watching something like this, I should in the future probably not even watch this entire crime report. I should really stay away from all of those crime reports, because those are usually about people that put up with abusers for way too long, until the abuser murders them. Putting up with abuse only escalates the abuse. Okay, I said it yesterday in my video also. It only escalates the situation. It does not appease anything. It does not. It might maybe temporarily, momentarily appease the abuser, but next time around he's going to be more abusive and more violent and more volatile if the person does something not according to his dictation. So the guy, after the parents had left, the guy found out about her flirting with a Chinese man, and he was afraid that she was going to leave him and take the baby also with her. So he threatened her, and she could have gone then. She still had some time. When someone threatens a person with real violence, serious violence, then the other person needs to get the heck out of there as soon as possible with their animal or animals and child or children, okay, with every innocent living being there is, okay. You take them with you, you leave. You go to the police. You go to some kind of women's shelter, okay, or some kind of homeless shelter, or some kind of shelter where they allow animals and children. So that's what you have to do, okay? Right away. Don't wait. Don't wait for a second. Any chance you get to leave, to get the heck out of there. Get out of there. Right now, as soon as possible. So she didn't. She stayed with him. She didn't know how to deal with him. She became kind of, in her way of fear, dealing with fear, or this type of, or anger even, which she suppresses. A lot of Asians suppress anger. This is not good. You need to say things right up front. You can't be bottling it up, okay? A lot of people do it, but I noticed Asians in particular do it. You cannot bottle things up, and her mother should not have put up with this. They should have gotten her and the baby out of there as soon as possible. But they're authority obedient, and that's what I want to get to in this video. That's what the real problem is in the whole world. That's why we have dictators. That's why we have oppressive governments. Okay. The Joe Biden administration is the mafia. It is an oppressive dictation government. It's an oligarchical, mafia-based dictatorship. That's what we have. And the reason why we have that is because people are authority obedient. And they don't want to be shunned by anyone. They don't want to be shamed. They want to be liked. They want to be adored. They want to be part of the group. So they go along with whatever the group says. Whatever the so-called social consensus tells them. Okay. And that's why we have these dictatorships. That's why we have the mafia. That's why we have horrible, horrible abuse happening in the whole world. Because people put up with this stuff. Okay? So the parents left, and then he finds out about that relationship, and he threatens her, and she deals with that in some kind of like an evasive, elusive, more like silent treatment type of way, or almost a little bit sarcastic, mocking type of way, but that's out of fear in her case. And I mean, he was way bigger than her, like almost 3 times her size, and way stronger, petite little Chinese girl cannot defend herself against a big Middle Eastern man. There's no way. Okay. And so at some point he throws her against the wall and repeatedly throws her against chairs and tables, breaking several of her ribs, and then strangulating her and asphyxiating her. And I'm also really sad that the neighbors, obviously the next door neighbors in the apartments all the way around or under them, that they didn't call the police when that happened. When they hear these loud noises, shouting and loud noises of bodies thrown around, why do these people not call anyone? Because everyone is just trying to protect themselves and afraid of retaliation and so on. So nobody wants to help. I find that also incredibly horrific. So then he puts her into some kind of golf course duffel bag, which is also the typical thing. You see this all the time in crime reports. And I guess wrapped in a trash bag to prevent blood from leaking out, then put into that really large golf course duffel bag, and then takes the baby and then he puts the duffel bag in the trunk, puts the baby on the back seat, and he drives out there into the forest. And he goes out there. He probably left the baby on the back seat while he takes the duffel bag out there into the forest and buries her body there into a shallow grave with a shovel and everything. The tree needles are under his shoes. It was very muddy on that day. A lot of the tree needles under his shoes embedded in the mud, caked onto the shoes. So, and that's what did him in, because they could not find her for a very, very long time, until a hiker found the body that had already been eaten by animals. A hiker found that skeleton, a skeleton in clothes, a rib cage sticking out. Obviously the clothes had been shredded also by bears and coyotes and stuff. So, and then they called the police, and they couldn't figure out whose body that was. And she didn't have any dental records and all of that. And I don't know what about the DNA, but I think I don't know, but they weren't able to do anything with that either. I don't even think that they had any previous records of her DNA or something. I don't know. But the DNA of the tree needles, the needle trees that were around that shallow grave. So they could identify the very tree. So apparently each tree actually has its own DNA signature, just like we have. It's very interesting. So then they could link the needles, the tree needles under the shoe with the trees, and they could put him into that area around the grave. So then they knew that he was there, and they got him and they caught him, and he was convicted of first-degree murder. But in California, it is a tragedy. Governor Newsom lets these people back out. And that's a crime. It really is. Okay. So I don't know whether that guy's still in prison or not, but I think that was a rather recent thing. I think it was in 2018 or something when that happened. So horrific. So then the parents came back in order to that is a big jaw now. Yes, I love you infinitely much. And that's the truth. Yes, that is the truth. You are my everything. So then the parents came back, and they had to deal with all of this horror, and the poor mother, my goodness, what a horror. So, and they came to pick up the baby girl, and then they had to do an agreement with the mother of the murderer that they will take turns taking care of the baby. And now the baby has to be shipped back and forth between United States and China, which is not good for the baby at all. The baby should go to the parents of the girl and should not go to the mother of that murderer. So that's just my personal view on it. So, but, yeah. Authority obedience doesn't lead to anything good. Yeah. So I'm not like blaming these people or anything, or judging them too much, particularly not from the higher perspective, from the sky perspective. I know they don't know better, that's where they are at, okay? But giving into violence does not make the world a better place at all. Okay, it's a very coward way of dealing with things, to be silent when you witness violence. So that's very coward, and it makes the world suffer. It causes victims of crime. Yeah. It causes suffering of animals and humans and children, and it makes the world suffer. So that's what I want to talk about, is this authority obedience, that we cannot continue like this. We cannot continue living our lives with authority obedience, whoever people are. It is not acceptable. It's not okay. You cannot give in to violence, whether that is a hate group like Black Lives Matter, or Antifa. It's one hate group, really. That's a violent hate group. They do hate crimes. Whether the legal system acknowledges that as hate crimes or not means absolutely nothing. It has nothing to do with anything. Just because the legal system says this is a hate crime and this is not. Okay. That doesn't mean the other one is not a hate crime. Okay. Just because a legal system says it. The entire U.S. Constitution that started out pretty good, you know. They wanted to get independence from England and so on. You know, the very first founders, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, you know, they wanted freedom, they wanted independence, they didn't want to have to pay taxes anymore, they didn't want to have to pay feudal fees to a dictatorship. Now what do we have? They have chipped away on it. Now we have property tax again. You pay rent on your own property. This is unconstitutional. It goes against our founding fathers' constitutional rights. Okay. But the majority of public says, that's the legal system. That must be good. Or that must be true, right? If they change that, they are my authority figures. No, they are not your authority figures, okay? Nobody is your authority figure. Whenever someone tries to get something together in terms of rules and regulations, this is only an approximation of creating something that you call a justice system. That doesn't mean that's based on ethics and based on justice. Just because it has the name justice doesn't mean it's about justice. The police department, you know, they used to have this, your friend and protector. Are they? No. Most of them are not. Most of them are jerks, narcissists, and psychopaths. Okay? That's the majority of them. If they weren't police officers, they would be on the other side of the spectrum. Okay? So there's no difference. They are criminals at heart. Okay, so they want to kick ass. Okay, in this form or that form, whatever form. They want to appease their egos. That's the majority of them. In Germany too. Here too, everywhere. I think all the way around the globe that's the case. It's those people that become police officers. So it's very rare that an animal rights activist becomes a police officer. It's a very, very risky job. Very dangerous job. But the majority of them, they ignore that danger because they want to arrest someone. They want to kick someone's ass. They want to hurt someone. People of all ethnicities, okay, are doing this. And it needs to be said, okay, so how many black police officers have shot and killed innocent dogs, okay, and also innocent people as well. But then nobody says anything because of Antifa, okay, and that's exactly what I'm talking about, okay. You let this escalate, every one of you. You don't say anything. You let this escalate, and then it just escalates out of control. And by the time it is so bad that it will come at your throat, literally, then it's too late for you to say something. Then you have let it escalate to the point where the legal system has now been completely taken over by the mafia and Antifa and Black Lives Matter. You want it to come to that point? I bet you do not. No matter what your skin color is, no matter what your ethnicity is, you do not want that to escalate it, because it will affect all of you eventually. Okay? Don't let this escalate. It doesn't matter what skin color Adolf Hitler comes back in, or Mao Zedong, or Nero, or Mussolini, or Stalin. Okay, it doesn't matter what skin color these people come back. They keep coming back. Okay, they're being reincarnated. So, and there are always new ones that pop up. Okay, so the world is full of those dictators that are just itching to become a dictator. Okay, and not do good. Okay, just for selfish purposes. And the public should not be okay with that. The public should not tolerate something like this to ever happen. Okay? Learn your lesson from the previous dictators. Don't go there again. Don't accept it again. Don't tolerate it. Don't be an enabler of this again. Okay? Don't be that pushover again. Say something before it is too late. So, peace out.